Good morning. Yesterday in church, I started talking about Leonardo da Vinci. What an amazing man. Truly the Renaissance man. Leonardo da Vinci. Da Vinci is not a last name like Bob Long. No, Da Vinci was actually where he was born, in the little town of Vinci, about 17 miles west of Florence. So he was Leonardo da Vinci, Leonardo of the little town of Vinci. It turned out that he had had relatives living there now for 5 generations, since back in the 1300s, and they all had been notaries. They were people who have actually achieved some sense of means and prominence and status. It was his great, great, great grandfather who actually had been a notary in Da Vinci. Well, it was Piero who would be his father. Piero, at 25 years old, had already established himself truly as a very driven, industrious man who had a good career, who was now already living in Florence and sometimes doing contracts for the Medici. A notary was someone more like a lawyer, someone who would help to draw up contracts, would help to create and certify that things were true, but it really was much more like being a lawyer. It was Piero, who was back home in Vinci, who wound up having a relationship with a young woman. She was 16 years old. He was now 24, and soon they would have a baby. It would be Leonardo. He would be born on April the 15th, 1452. Now, the issue was that Piero was engaged to be married to another lady, and so in order to keep things kind of nice and neat, it was Piero's family, the Da Vinci family, who was able to find a friend who was a farmer in that area, and they then had her become his wife. Not to try to hide anything, no one was hiding it, it's just they wanted to create a family, and he was certainly willing to do that. Now, the fascinating thing is nobody knew who Da Vinci's mother was until 2017. We had learned her name was Caterina, but didn't really know a whole lot about her. It wasn't until just 3 years ago that they were able to produce documents and evidence to finally know that she was Caterina Lippi. And Caterina Lippi had been the daughter of a poor farmer. He passed away when she was 14. She went to live with her grandmother, she and her brother, and 1 year later, her grandmother passed away. It was then that she became involved with Piero. Well, in the end, they had a big baptism. Leonardo was born on a Saturday. They had a big baptism service at church on Sunday. Lots of family was there from all the Da Vinci family and notables. This was a son, and it was a special thing. 1 week later, we know that Piero was back in Florence, and life was moving on. What would happen was Leonardo would be raised by his mother and his now stepfather there in Da Vinci, as well as his grandfather. Piero's father, his grandfather, would also spend lots of time raising Leonardo there in Vinci. And growing up as a child was actually a very wonderful time in his life. One of the things that began to happen was that he developed this incredible sense of curiosity. He always loved to learn about things. And that's what would make him a Renaissance man. He would be blessed by the fact that because he was an illegitimate son, he would not be expected to be a notary. Had he been the eldest son of Piero and his wife, he would have had to be a notary. That would have been horrible for Leonardo. And secondly, because he was an illegitimate son, he was not sent to one of the schools of that day for formal learning. And so Leonardo was free to be himself, and because of his curiosity, he began to explore so many different things. He loved math, he loved science, he loved literature, he loved art, he loved all these things, and he believed all things somehow fit together. And so he would love and study so many things and become one of the most brilliant people in history and not have formal lettered education. Some of the things that he liked to study I thought were fascinating. He was curious and studied the placenta of a calf. the jaw of a crocodile. He studied the tongue of a woodpecker. He studied the muscles of the face, the edge of a shadow. He would study so many things. And he didn't have to know about the tongue of a woodpecker to paint the Mona Lisa. And yet he believed somehow all things would fit together. He loved to learn. He did some great things, but as I told you on Sunday, one of the challenges for Leonardo was that so often he wanted to have everything perfect. He carried some amazing paintings with him all his life, even the Mona Lisa, always making one stroke occasionally, because he never thought it was perfect. And as that was desired to be perfect, that so often inhibited him from doing so many great things. I enjoyed reading the book I told you about, Leonardo da Vinci, by Walter Isaacson. And when it came to the end, he made a fascinating conclusion in which he made the statement, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. It was Leonardo who couldn't get the perspective right for the Battle of Angahari, and so he never finished it, or the Adoration of the Magi, and he never finished it. He would do such things as St. Anne and Mona Lisa, but worked on them literally all of his life. He always thought there was something more he could do. It was kind of like Steve Jobs. If you remember, Steve Jobs was a perfectionist, and he held up the shipment of the original Macintosh because the board on the inside of the computer didn't look nice. No one would ever see it, but he wanted it to look beautiful. And so they continued to work on it. But it was finally Steve Jobs who also said, real artists ship. Finally, you got to do it. You have to say, it's the best that I can do at this moment, and you finally have to say, done. Strive to be your best. Give it all you have. Live with a spirit of incredible curiosity and want to learn, but also know real artists ship. The day comes when you finally have a project and say, it's the best that I can do, I'm done, and know that it is good enough. You are enough. I'm going to pray that today you be safe and you go out and make it a great day.